6 a.m. and you're sitting out on your back porch enjoying your morning cup of coffee, when all of a sudden you hear a thunderous boom. Is it a bird, a plane, a meteor? No. It's actually a reusable rocket booster re-entering Earth's atmosphere, something that's becoming more and more commonplace for us here in Central Florida. Personally, space travel has always interested me, and now that I live so close to the heart of it, I was given the perfect opportunity to better educate myself on the history on what's going on over at the Space Coast. Thanks to a rich history in space exploration, Florida Space Coast has inspired the lives of millions. From its impact on tourism to entrepreneurs, the Space Coast will continue to be a focal point of American space travel. Before we jump into the juicy stuff, it's crucial to acknowledge the importance of Florida Space Coast throughout the future of spaceflight. For over 50 years, the Space Coast has been the primary location for launches in the United States. What used to be farmlands and marsh was selected by President Truman in Cape Canaveral, Florida, to conduct tests for ballistic missiles in 1949. Cape Canaveral was a good launch site because of its proximity to the Atlantic Ocean and the equator, so that it would get a slingshot effect when launched into space. The Eastern Range, as it's referred to by the military, consists of two facilities, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station and Kennedy Space Center. Cape Canaveral Air Force Station is located on Patrick Air Force Base and is the primary launch head for the Eastern Range, with 3 active launch pads and the home to the original mission control. Cape Canaveral Air Force Station is also home to many firsts for space travel, including sending the first U.S. astronaut into space and the first U.S. satellite. Just to the north of Cape Canaveral Air Force Station is Kennedy Space Center, the home of NASA and all American lunar missions. NASA, short for National Aeronautics and Space Administration, was founded by President Eisenhower in 1958. Due to the growing demand for the space program, NASA needed bigger facilities, so it bought nearby Merritt Island. While there's so much rich history involving the Space Coast that's interesting, it's what's currently happening that is catching the eye of Americans. Today, both facilities are in full force and offer fantastic opportunities for tourists and entrepreneurs alike. Although in my survey about the Space Coast, 60% of us have not been to the Space Center. I think we can all agree it's the first place that comes to your mind when you think of the Space Coast. At Kennedy Space Center is Spaceports USA, which draws in 1.5 million visitors annually according to the Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Report, and is widely seen as a top 10 tourist destination in Florida. At Kennedy Space Center, visitors are able to take advantage of immersive IMAX experiences, see historic artifacts, and their famous bus tour. I recently visited Kennedy Space Center for research and went on the tour myself, where Gene Waiters escorted me and 12 other passengers on a bus tour past the Vehicle Assembly Building, historic launch pads, and displays of retired former space vessels. Debatably, the best part about going to Kennedy Space Center is that they offer the closest locations for viewing launches, however at an additional cost. There are plenty of free areas you can see the launches for an, if not better, view, including Cocoa Beach Pier, Satellite Beach, or Port Canaveral. Perhaps the most talked about resident right now at the Space Coast, SpaceX, is flourishing in producing what it calls launch vehicles at both a marginally cheaper cost and more successful rate. Started by Elon Musk in 2012, Space Exploration Technologies has had over 50 successful launches. What makes SpaceX so successful is its ability to recycle its rocket booster, which not only saves money, but is better for our environment. Featuring both its Falcon 9 and Falcon 9 Heavy rocket booster systems, they have 50 planned missions, including sending satellites into space and transporting cargo to and from the International Space Station. Everything that SpaceX has going on right now is working in a very big way. It is because of that exactly why everyone, including the government, has their eyes on SpaceX. Though the current state of the Space Coast is very impressive, it pales in comparison to what the future holds. Due to the childhood dreams of a few wealthy individuals, the billionaire space race is in full force in hopes of reaching both commercial and astro-orbital possibilities. The primary competitor to SpaceX is Blue Origin, the rocket company founded by Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. Both SpaceX and Blue Origin are looking to prove to NASA that their Air Force that their rocket booster systems, the Falcon 9 and New Shepard respectively, are capable to perform transport missions for them. In addition to competing with SpaceX, Blue Origin is also neck and neck with Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic in hopes of making suborbital flight commercial. The difference between the two is that Blue Origin uses their rocket booster system to propel guests around the Earth's equator, whereas Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic takes off on a shuttle and doesn't reach as high of an elevation. It would appear Blue Origin is winning, with it having confirmed test launches of its capsule at the end of the year and is expected to be a member of space tourism by the end of 2019. As exciting as the concept of space tourism sounds, the most anticipated aspect about the future of Florida Space Coast comes from NASA's announcement of their Orion program. According to the NASA headquarters library, Orion is a new deep space capsule similar to the Apollo capsule for greater depths of travel in space. If all goes well, they are looking to send humans to the moon by 2030. The other half of the Orion program was brought into light with NASA's announcement of an all-new space launch system for the vessel carrying the Orion capsule. NASA claims it will be able to start sending astronauts into space with Orion by 2020, which happens to be the same year that both Blue Origin and SpaceX claim that their rocket booster systems will be able to reach orbital elevations. One can imagine the two companies are fighting for that coveted government contract to be the factor of that space launch system in the new Orion program vessel. Literally, all of that research is going on right over on the Space Coast. Buzz Aldrin once said, "As you look down to Earth from the moon, I didn't feel like a giant. I felt very, very small." This couldn't be true more now than ever, as the human race has reached more potentials to travel into greater lengths of space than ever before. As you can tell, the Space Coast is chock full of historical significance. Between the activities you can currently enjoy at Cape Canaveral and what the future of space travel holds, it's truly amazing how the Space Coast is with it all. Next time you are outside and happen to catch an object flying up into space, think about how incredible it is that we are so close to the home of future space missions. If nothing I talked about today interested you, then on October 17th at 12:15 in the morning, step outside, look to the east, and experience the beauty of space travel yourself.